We're here, we're live! Woohoo! Welcome, Christine. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to be here to talk about the next installment of our Narnia read along. I can't believe we're like getting towards the end. We're getting close to the end now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's been very enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we've, had a lot of great people joining us, and it's pretty awesome that we're being as consistent as we can.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to get through this series. It's pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. It's always not it's such a big accomplishment and a satisfying feeling when you can finish a series rather than being in
Mhm.
the middle of all of them.
Oh
So,
yeah, absolutely. It definitely makes a big difference.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
I know because I have like 62 series I'm currently in the middle of. So yeah, no, it makes a big difference for me.
Yeah, I don't even figure I don't know how many I'm in the middle of, and I'm just like, at this point I'm not gonna
Yeah.
worry about figuring it. Yeah.
We've got John here to say hello. Hey John, how's it going?
Hello.
And of course we got Naomi. Hello Naomi,
Hi.
welcome. And
Hi.
Naomi sent me the picture of her the horse and his boy tattoo. So I'll definitely make sure once I find it to
Hmm.
share that. Yeah, I've got it. But we'll share it once in due time.
Yes.
So okay, so we started with the horse and his boy in this section. It's interesting because both of these stories don't really go along with the normal timeline of the Narnia series that we had started with in the first three books.
Right.
Four books.
Yeah.
Four books? Yeah, four books. Okay, how many books are in the series?
7, I believe.
Okay. So the first four books. Yes, these are the six books, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that was kind of interesting that these both were from a different time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so Horse and His Boy
Hmm.
is back. We're back with when Peter and Edmund and Susan and what's our girl that we like a lot, Lucy,
Yes.
were all king and queens of Narnia.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting. So it's kind of like I don't know if I would want to call it like a prequel, but it's like kind of an intermittent story because it's definitely
Mhm.
before the end of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe officially ends.
Right, right. Yeah, and so I know a lot of people, and Naomi has said this before, and my friend Shell said this before, that this is their favorite of all the books, or at least if I think they were to order them, this would be maybe the most favorite. Is that still true, Naomi? I don't know on your reread if you feel that's still true, but what did you think, Christine? Like,
Mhm.
how does this rank, now that you've read it?
Um, I think I liked it, but definitely not my favorite. I think my favorite out of all of them is one that's yet to be discussed. So, um, but I think I would kind of put this one maybe middle of the
Okay.
ones so far. So it just kind of
Yeah,
falls back in the middle.
it was strange because I don't know if it was when I read this, because I did listen to it on audiobook, and the audiobook was okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just at the time that I read it, it wasn't what I needed to be reading because
Hmm.
I didn't. It's not that I didn't enjoy it. I was really enjoying the storyline and I was enjoying the concept of it a lot. I was enjoying the characters, but for
Hmm.
me, it kept losing my interest. I feel like when I listened to this whole story, I don't really remember as much as I had hoped I would remember. Like I'm like, wait a minute, how much of that story do I like? I remember the main points and the things that are important, but I feel like I must have zoned out quite a bit while I was listening to this one. And
Hmm.
I don't know why, because that is not true for the one you're going to also talk about
Yeah.
that we have yet to talk about.
Yeah.
And maybe it was the narrator. Did you listen to Horse and This Boy on the audiobook?
Yes, I read along while I listened, and this so far out of all the narrations, this is my least favorite narration. So
I
I
think, yeah,
think,
it's
right,
definitely the one that's kept my attention the least.
yeah, yeah. And even when I was reading along, like you, I kept forgetting certain things, and so that's why I would say it's kind of probably middle of the road. There are certain aspects, like obviously, I love the fact that the animals can talk in this world, and I love horses. I'm just allergic, so I can't be around them. So it's like to be around all
Oh,
these horses in this book, it's like,
yeah.
oh, I love this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean the concepts were there for me
Hmm.
and I did like getting this look back into the you know, Edmund and or well, it was mostly Edmund in this particular one because we didn't actually come up against Peter at any point, I don't think, but Edmund and Susan were there and Lucy was there, and it was nice to see these characters that we had gotten to know so well in the first couple of books and get to experience them like in the prime of their reign. And it
Right.
was kind of fun to see that, even though they weren't the main characters in the story. And I really did like the main characters well enough, but I
Mhm.
just don't remember, like it just didn't stay with me as much as some
Yeah.
of the other ones have,
Yeah.
which I thought was strange. So maybe it is the narration.
Hmm.
I don't
I
know.
think that's definitely part of it. I think though with reading it too, it's still kind of, there are parts of it that I'm finding more forgettable than others. There are certain things I do remember, like I found the main female character in this. I don't even remember her name right off, but I'm finding that she was more annoying out of the two. And
She was, yeah, yeah, definitely, because
yeah,
she was royal. She was royalty and kind of full of herself, and he
yeah,
was.
yeah.
I really did like the fact I knew he was going to be they all picked him up and they thought he was this other kid. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, he's going to be a twin. Like,
Yeah.
the whole ending was spoiled for me at that point because I knew that was what was going to happen. That he was going to be this long lost prince,
Yeah.
and and so, but I liked that idea. I thought that was pretty neat,
Hmm.
and kind of nice how that tied it all together. But yeah, maybe the main characters. I like the horses, but I think the character that I liked the most was actually the hermit. I really
Yeah.
liked the hermit guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to oh yes, yeah, him. Yeah. Takes a minute, but yeah, I got it. Yeah. Yeah, no, and I agree too. Like you said, it was kind of pretty obvious the way things fell when they thought with that mistaken identity that it's like, okay, he's definitely related. Definitely at the very least a twin brother, or maybe like a
Hmm.
cousin that's the exact same age or something. At the
Right.
very, so there's, it was pretty obvious that there was a certain path going on there.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought so too. Naomi said, I think of it as a snapshot of their reign, yes. And
Hmm.
it's still my favorite as I love the relationships between the children and the horses.
Yeah.
Okay, so honestly, I kind of thought there was going to be a lot more of that. So I was hoping for more delving into the relationships between the children
Mm.
and the horses. So maybe that's where I need to go back and reread it at some point and see what I missed because I just was kind of like that part felt like I wanted more of it. I wanted more relationship building
Hmm.
between the main characters than
Yeah.
I ended up feeling like we got
Yeah.
because they got separated quite a few times.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think that's part of why I was like, I would have, is not my favorite. I would have liked, like you had said, more of the relationship between the children and the horses. And so, but I mean, they're not the focus, but the title is. If that's not the focus, the title's kind of misleading because it's a horse and his boy, but it's not there the whole time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I kind of expected them to create an even deeper bond.
Hmm.
I felt like Aslan played more of a role than the horse, and with the boy than the
Yeah,
horse and his boy for me. And I did really like, Aslan's role in this one. He just was like a guardian, and he was there, and that's where Naomi's tattoo comes in, and it's beautiful and it's really clever because it definitely. Can you
oh,
see?
I like that.
Isn't that gorgeous?
That is
It's got
beautiful.
the cat that he comes up
Yeah,
against, who's his guardian pretty much anytime he gets away from his group, but it's actually Aslan. And I just think that is so gorgeous.
yeah,
Beautiful, Naomi.
yeah.
Absolutely
I
beautiful.
really like that part where I finally realized, or that revelation took place, that Aslan was that cat that kept him company and provided that warmth and security. I loved.
And I started I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh,
Um
I loved it.
I was
That.
saying, like, I started to realize that he was all the lions that they had come across the whole time, and I was starting to think there's got to be a reason why he was doing like scaring them or kind of
Mhm.
doing things to get them. I didn't know he was all the lions the whole time, but after a while, it was like they're coming up against too many lions. There's got to be a connection here
Yeah.
somehow, and Aslan definitely Aslan definitely makes sure that everything he does is sort of like he doesn't want to do things for you. He wants to do these kids to learn and do things on their own. And he's also always trying to teach them a lesson so that they won't do the same mistakes or do the same things again. So like with his scratching that girl on the back, he was on the back, right? I think he
Yeah,
scratched her and he said,
on the
"This
back.
is what happened to the girl who you left to be the fall guy when you just disappear. So she's going to get lashings because." And so it was like
Mm,
interesting that everything he does, even if he hurts them, is to try and teach them about like something that they were not, they didn't consider that that was something that
mm,
could have happened. And I thought that that was really, I mean, very true to what C.S. Lewis has done in this whole series, where kids he has several kids who are, naughty kids who just need to learn to not be such jerks, like Edmund
mhm.
and Eustace.
Yeah.
And then he's got kids who are not necessarily bad kids, but they make bad choices, and they have to learn that their bad choices have consequences.
Mhm.
And it's like he never lets them get away with any of the bad choices they
Right.
make. And so we can talk about that more with the next book, because
Mhm.
that definitely comes into play quite a bit with the next book.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's like all of C.S. Lewis's stories have some level of, this is what you did that was wrong. And Aslan's always the one saying, okay, you did this and it was wrong. Let's recognize that you did this and it was wrong. But
Mm,
let's now see how we can bring um, like knowledge as to this shouldn't happen again in the future, but we can forgive you because you're not really a bad person. You just made a bad choice, sort of thing.
mhm.
And I'm like, that's like formulaic in every single one of these books.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, because my impression is it's like she wasn't, the female lead in this wasn't bad. She, because of how she grew up, she was more selfish and had to learn. She's got to recognize that there are other people and the choices you make don't affect just you. They affect others around you. And so, it's like the whole thing where, sometimes you hear you have two choices and both of them are probably ultimately good, but you got to choose between which is probably better of the two, or the least, if they're both kind of bad choices, which is the
Mm-hmm.
least harmful.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of takes them down that selfish notch to say, okay, the world does not revolve around me. Everyone
Right, right.
has a hand in things.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Max says, I read it physically and I would rank it as my favorite. Okay, wow, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
Mariana says, hi,
Hello.
hello, welcome. Naomi says, I think this is also my favorite because how many times Aslan is present and active from the beginning to the end. Yeah, I do love Aslan, so I'm a big fan of Aslan being present in these. So I can see that, Naomi.
Yeah, definitely.
Leanna says, there was more suspense for me in this one. I was nervous the boy and the horse would be caught, and then also in the scene where the girl's hiding and overhears a private conversation. I know that
Right.
scene was pretty stressful.
Hmm.
It was kind of cool though, and I was so shocked that she trusted her friend so well, and that her friend, because her friend never agreed with her ever, and yet
Yeah.
no matter what, her friend never, as much as she may have disagreed with her, she didn't actually um, betray her at any point.
Right.
I thought that was really interesting. I was like, wow, that's a,
Hmm. They've got a good bond, and so
yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool that it's like when you have such a good bond, even time and distance sometimes can't sever
mhm,
that bond. You can just pick up right where you left off. Mhm.
absolutely. And it was
Mhm.
good that they had found people they could trust. Yeah,
Yes.
there was suspense in this though, especially when they were anytime that they were in like a chase, like they were being chased and they're running as fast as they constantly can, and the lion is chasing them and they
Yeah.
barely get there. And there was a lot of moments in this where they were being followed, they were being attacked in a lot of ways. So yeah, there would be a level of suspense, and I thought they did a pretty good job um, keeping that suspense going.
Hmm.
And so that was interesting. And makes you feel like they're really on this like time crunch of a journey where
Yeah.
they've got to get somewhere in a certain time.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
definitely feel that urgency as it goes on, and that deadline is fast approaching. Hmm.
What'd you think of the setting of this one? It was definitely a little different because it was a different area. What was it,
You know,
Arkenland or what was
I
it?
I think for me the setting was a little bit dull in a way. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's really the right word to use, but it's like it just wasn't the type of setting that I like. I prefer the more majestic, greener,
Lush Narnia.
full, lush settings
Hmm.
than the more of the barren desert type of a setting. So it
Right.
wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that maybe have changed a little bit how you felt about the book as well, because they did really spend a lot of time in this place, because what Susan had planned on marrying the, what was his name? The Prince of, was it the Prince of Arculand? I can't remember at this point,
Yeah.
but and then she realized he was a bad dude, and they were trying to sneak out of there. And I thought that was interesting. Like, how did she initially get to the point where she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna marry this guy," and then that kind of seems a little strange to me.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we do miss out on, even though we do see more of the original kids, we do miss out on some of this, and all of a sudden, oh, there's a possible marriage going to happen, and but you don't get any of that build up.
Hmm.
So would have
Yeah,
been nice to have some of that, but yeah.
yeah. And I was thinking about the main boy and just kind of the experience he had, and then who he ended up being. It was so strange that that guy. I mean, I guess it makes sense that that guy took him in. But Aslan basically put him there so that he would be taken up by that guy, even though that guy was going to be such a jerk to him. I guess he felt like, well, it's better that he's taken up by this guy, and then, you know,
Mhm.
anything else worse could happen to him in a sense.
Mhm. Well, and I think what I liked is the tie-in back to that, where Aslan was like, where he did say, "Yeah, I helped guide you to that guy because you were kidnapped or in danger or whatever it was."
Right.
And when you think about how he was raised in that little bit, how much more that would make him a better king, since he's the one in
Mm,
line, not his twin brother.
that's right. That's right. That's a very good point,
Mhm.
because he can appreciate the hardships of the people around him. He's lived a life of poverty, and worse, it was poverty, but he also was a bit oppressed because of his uncle, or no, his father,
Yeah.
sorry. And so he would have a better understanding of everybody around him and the people, and would be able to better appreciate their situations, so it would make him a better ruler.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and the fact that he also wasn't as, like, what was his brother? Just his brother seemed very not. He just wanted to fight. Like, he just wanted to fight and go off on adventures and stuff
Yeah.
like that. He had been raised kind of spoiled, just not necessarily caring so much about his duty, what his duty is as a son and
Hmm.
as prince to the throne.
Hmm. Yeah. I kind of got the feeling he would be better in the military because he just wanted to be involved in things, uh,
Hmm.
and would be better with a military leadership role of some kind to report back to his brother.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And there is a certain level of there the older one, I guess he's technically the older one, he has a certain level of humility, more so than his his younger brother does now, because of his experiences. So that, and he also didn't want to be king, which
Yeah.
just shows that he probably is the better choice for it, because he's not going to take it and use it to his advantage to be
Right.
a bad king.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
Naomi says there were lots of tense moments in this one. The pressure was always on, and the need to be safe was always present.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments where you just felt like anything could go wrong,
Mhm.
and um, it didn't feel like there was much relief from that,
Yeah.
especially because they were in the desert. So there wasn't even like, they, the scenes where they were actually like in the heat and they're wandering and they're so thirsty, and then you could feel, like, he described those very well. You could feel
Yeah.
how desperate they were getting.
Hmm.
That is why Edmund is so forgiving. He went to the other side of betrayal.
Yeah.
I I did think about that quite a bit when I was reading Edmund's part, and he did mention that in this. He kind of said something along the lines of, "I can understand that,
Hmm.
because he understood what it was like to be a betrayer."
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely can stick with you, something like that, when you learn that lesson the hard way, of how far into your life that sticks with you.
Yeah, Edmund did a great job of turning himself around after that first book, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's come a long way in this series.
Hmm. Definitely.
Let's see. Yeah. So is there anything else about that first book that comes to mind that you really struck you, you liked or didn't like necessarily about it?
Not that I can really think of right off. I think we've covered it pretty well, and like you had said, that urgency is there, whether it's that fear and urgency to get to a safe place from humans or from nature.
Hmm.
Both can be just as deadly. You know,
Oh yeah.
that was the biggest thing that I liked. Is it's like, oh, just because you're walking in the desert doesn't mean you're safe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there were a lot of it did do a really good job of keeping on your toes the whole time with that. Like with both the dangers coming from all directions. It was a yeah, it was a pretty suspenseful book. I don't know. Maybe it was just the audiobook
Mm-hmm.
why I was having such a hard time retaining things and really focusing on this one. Um,
Yeah, the
yeah,
audiobook, like I said earlier, was definitely the least. This narrator was the least enjoyable
entertaining,
out of all of
interesting.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That must be it because I feel like Magician's Nephew had the best narrator, which is Kenneth Branagh, who I love him anyways, but like he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a great narration. And this is my second time reading this particular book, and the first time I read it, I gave it like 3 stars or so.
Mm-hmm.
I read it before reading any of the other books. It was the only book I'd ever read, but in this series before. And man, what a difference it made reading it. I liked reading it a lot more at this stage, reading in publication order and reading Magician's Nephew now, even though it's a prequel to the whole series. And gosh, the narration was so dang good.
It
I
was.
was riveted the whole time.
Yeah.
Just loved it. This book jumped up so many levels for me, and I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the story. I was very impressed this time around.
Yeah.
And maybe I just read it at the right time too. Maybe like all of a sudden I'm in the zone
Yeah.
for middle grade fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't when I read The Horse and His Boy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which happens sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So what are your thoughts?
On The Magician's Nephew,
Yeah.
I would say so far it is one of my top two favorite books. As far as if it's my favorite one or not, I don't know. We'll have to read the last book to see. But I loved it. I think the narrator did a great job. I found it as memorable as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. For me, it had a lot more to there. I liked how it conveyed the uncle as it's like he has these desires, but how having certain power can go to your head.
Mm.
And and then it's like the whole thing with the witch. I kept kind of thinking, is she going to turn into the Snow Witch from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? And I just kept thinking about that and
Mm-hmm.
the temptations the kids had to go through and the lessons and the whole creation of Narnia was really cool.
That's very magical, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I don't know why I didn't enjoy it as much the first time I read it, but maybe having the context of all the other stories at this point allowed me to just appreciate the story itself even more. And then, of course, because I already know about Aslan, I know about Narnia,
Mm-hmm.
um, that made that whole experience even richer because, like, now I get to see how it all began.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the characters a lot. Like reading all the characters from all the other books. I enjoyed Diggory. I enjoyed Polly. Like these two main children characters are some of my favorite main children characters.
Yeah.
Um, I appreciated them both, and this one was one where Aslan was like really making Diggory, eat, like what do you call it? He was really making Diggory see the error of his ways, and I was like, "You're being kind of harsh on him. He wasn't as bad as some of the other kids we've come up against."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Geez, leave Diggory alone. He's my little buddy."
Yeah.
And granted, I knew Diggory needed to learn lessons, but I didn't feel like he was nearly as bad as some of the other kids, or his behavior was nearly as bad as some of the other kids.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
so it was just kind of funny that I was like feeling very like, "No, don't leave him alone."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and part of the thing that I liked about The Magician's Nephew is you could get the hints and the kind of foreshadowing that would be in this book leading to certain parts in the other books, like the creation of the lamp.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I just thought that was really cool. And okay, come on.
Hi, baby.
Gotta be the center of attention. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I think I got really excited when the lamp was there. I was like, I know the lamp.
Hmm.
I
I
like,
know.
yeah.
I loved the planting of all the like. I loved the planting of the uncle. I just like
Yeah.
that part was hilarious.
Yeah.
Just the animal's reaction to the uncle was just so funny, and it was just really fun to read that. And there were a couple of parts where I was just getting a little, it may just be a certain reason, being
Hmm.
female, but I was getting quite choked up in a couple of parts. I'm like, why? There's nothing sad about this. Why are you getting choked up?
Yeah.
But I think I just liked the characters a lot in this one.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I felt for him. And, it was really sad with Dickory's, he was in grief. Like, the conversation surrounding grief with his mother was really,
Hmm.
it wasn't a lot. It wasn't in this book the whole time, but there was there, and it was just that part was sad. And then Aslan's
Yeah.
crying, and I'm crying. That's
Yeah.
the part that I cried at for sure. Aslan's crying, and the Dickory's crying, and Amy's crying. It was just,
Yeah. I think one of the things I think I really liked about this too is, like you had mentioned, the whole thing with his mother and how that was at the back of his mind and such a motivation. You could really feel that love. But kind of a more comedic standpoint is I loved how with the animals, they're so new and even they're trying to figure out the whole thing with his uncle. And it's like, oh,
Mhm.
he's got to be this type of animal. Oh no, there's this whole discussion around him. And I like the point where it was sometimes when you set your mind to something, you don't hear anything else. Like the uncle can't hear that the animals are really speaking. He's just hearing all the growls and grunts.
Yeah, I know. I love that. And they're like, we're just trying to figure. Oh, he's a fun toy. Can we keep him?
Yeah. And he's just passing out left and right. It's like, oh.
And they watered him.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, I did really like that. Let's see. Naomi says, I love the origin story of Narnia. The way it spends so much time world jumping and in London is so very different than the rest. Yeah, and the rings like that.
That was
didn't
interesting.
didn't 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 you say, or did Naomi say that was it you or Naomi that said that C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were actually friends? And was it
Yeah.
Tolkien or somebody else? Right?
Uh,
And so, like, did he get influenced with the rings from?
yeah. Lord of the, yeah.
Yeah.
Wondered about
So I thought
that.
that was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept was unique, that how his uncle uh, had been able to make these rings through his experimentation and whatnot. But man,
Mm-hmm.
his uncle was such a pain in the butt.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah,
Let's
definitely a
see.
solid.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, and just the fact that he was so like, oh, yeah, why would I go when I can send you kids to go? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
He was just like the queen, except, a little not as powerful and
Yeah.
didn't have that much courage.
Yeah.
Max says, I also read The Magician's Nephew previously and never continued on until now. Definitely liked it better in publication order. Yeah, there's something about reading it after you've read the other Narnia books that, like, I really liked it this time around.
Yeah.
Shockingly, I liked it way, way more. And so, you know, for me, it worked a lot better being.
Mm-hmm.
Beth Ann's here. Hey, Beth Ann.
Hello.
How you doing? John says, hi, Beth Ann. Hi, John. So, Naomi says, I can see what you're saying about Dickory. I do think his actions set off the events of Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, so his choice has a long-lasting impact. Yes, you're right. I know. But I liked him, and
Yeah.
I didn't think he was nearly as much of a little jerk as some of the other kids have been. So I was
Yeah.
like, he's
Yeah.
just a, he's just a sweet kid who's made some bad choices, and
And
I don't know.
I love how at the end that Polly and Diggory remained friends
Yeah.
over complete years. And I think now definitely let me know if I'm thinking wrong, but I think I was led to believe, or I believed, or however you want to phrase it, that Diggory becomes the old man in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And so when the kids, like in The Lion, the Witch, and the wardrobe go to him, and they don't believe Lucy that he has that.
Hmm.
I believe, but I'm not going to say I've actually been there.
Yeah, no, that's true because they said that when the apple tree that he had planted died or it was destroyed or something, he took the wood and turned it into the wardrobe that he put in that country estate, and that was where they sent the kids during World War II. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was World War II. It was had to have been World War II or World War One, one
Yeah.
of the world wars,
Yeah.
where they sent the kids to stay with their uncle to be safe. They sent them to the country to be away from London,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm guessing. I mean, they didn't call him Diggory.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't. He was whatever his name was, Professor something or other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it was implied that that's the
Yeah.
same guy. At least if it wasn't him, then it was one of his children or something along those lines. But the fact that he has seen things himself, it was what he kind of said about Lucy, like, that you just can't not believe her. And he kept saying things like, well, you know, you would believe you would believe Edmund over Lucy though, and they thought, well, we have to believe Edmund because whatever Lucy says is crazy, and it's like, well, no, but who's more likely to be the honest one here?
Yeah.
And you know, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then says, yes, hey, it's been a while. I'm happy to see you as well. It has been a while. It's been a
Yeah.
long while. Diggory is the professor. Okay, he's a
Yes.
wonderful flashback to the lion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is, and I really do like. I like Diggory a lot, and now that I know that he's the professor, I like him even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been so long since I read the series. When I reread, I always read in chronological order now. Yeah, and we did talk about that quite a bit because I had started reading this series a long time ago. Chronologically, I read The Magician's Nephew, and I wasn't as crazy about it. I read it; it was fine. And then when Christine approached me, she says, "Let's read this," and I said, "Well, let's read it in did you want to read it in publication order? Did I want to read it in publication order? I don't remember what
You
happened, but
patient
oh,
order. Either way, I just wanted to read the series.
right. And I said, let's read it in publication order. And because I think that's what I had read somewhere, it was recommended to read it. So somebody had recommended read it in publication order. And so I was like, okay, let's do that. So we read it in publication order. And I think because that was the intention of C.S. Lewis and how he wrote the stories, it made sense now that I'm reading them, it makes sense to me that he wrote them to be read in that order.
Yeah.
I feel like it. I mean, do you feel like that?
I do. I do feel like that. And yeah, it's hard to articulate because it's like even with other authors when they write the whole series and then go back and do a prequel, it's like, are you meaning to read the prequel
Mhm.
first, or is it to just kind of help you realize certain aspects you may have missed? And so yeah, no, I think that the publication order is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and I guess in this particular series, because I can definitively say that I enjoy this book way more now,
Mm-hmm.
having read the other books, that it would be my suggestion to read them in publication order.
Yeah.
But I know some people really like reading things in chronological order, and I get that because you get the timeline. So totally, it's really, I guess that's just a personal experience, a personal preference when it comes
Yeah.
to how stories are being read.
Yeah.
Magda's here. Hello,
Uh,
Magda.
yeah, I don't think there's a definite wrong way as far as if it's chronological or publication order to read it. Like you said, I think it's personal preference. My thinking with publication order is like with The Lion, the Wit, or The Magician's Nephew. If you read it in chronological order, then you're going, well, what's the point of the lamppost? What's the point of all this? And you're not going to get that until the next book, where you've read all these, and it's like, okay, now all of these things, like when Lucy goes through the wardrobe, there's this lamppost, and it's like now you can kind of see more of the importance of it, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. And this kind of goes with another series that I'm currently reading where I'm reading one that's set in like I'm reading them back and forth, one that's set in the past and one that's set in the current time. And it is really kind of fun to kind of fun. It's fun to be reading something that you know about from a previous book and kind of find those tie-ins in that timeline. You go, "Oh gosh, now that makes sense." It almost feels like you're privy to this like inside secret that you know about and because you've read the other book, even
Yeah.
if it was in the past. And I kind of I like that feeling, and so it kind of feels like, oh yeah, that makes sense now. I see why it was used that way, or I see how that came about. And there's something I enjoy. But I know that Shell has read them chronologically, and she prefers to read, or at least she preferred to read this series chronologically, because for her, she feels like Magician's Nephew is a good setup for the
Mhm.
whole, which makes sense because it's the beginning
Yeah.
of Narnia. So, like, I could see it being both ways. I just
Mhm.
know that for my own personal enjoyment, I've enjoyed it this way. That hmm, work. I've enjoyed this way we're reading it this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to go back and reread it in chronological order this time to see if, when you go back and read it chronologically, if you prefer that or if you still prefer publication order.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting
Yeah,
to compare the two.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and it probably is. It'd be different. Maybe it would feel different based on, well, because then when do you read A Horse and His Boy? Is that between one and two? It would be between one and two. So it'd be
Yeah.
between The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
So I think it'd be the third book that you read.
Right. So you'd read Magician's Nephew, Lion, the
Like,
Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Horse and His Boy.
so it's
Okay.
really just those two books that are
They're
in
out of,
order in the series, depending on which way you read it. Everything else is pretty much the same.
yeah. But then says, okay, maybe next reread should be in publication order. Yeah, I mean, since you've done it chronologically, maybe see if it makes a difference. I'll be curious to hear
Mm-hmm.
if that feels any different.
Mm-hmm.
Amy says, I always think publication order is better because we actually care from the start, and this is a character-driven series. If Narnia could be called a character. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess Narnia could be, it is a setting, but it has there's so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
um, it is character-driven.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
My introduction states that Lewis preferred chronological order. I think the first time through should be read in publication order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's interesting to know that he preferred the chronological order.
Chronological.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just feel like the I feel like reading it in this order has felt right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know.
But
Yeah,
that's
I one of the other things I got to say this too. One of the other things I really liked about The Magician's Nephew is that I always find it interesting to know the villain's backstory. So, like in this one, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the white,
mm-hmm.
she's a regular witch, so she's always been evil. But then after eating the apple, it's like it just kind of deepened her evilness in a way,
Right.
and so that was interesting to read. Mm-hmm.
I found it interesting too because I really did wonder in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe where the White Witch had come from. I mean, they kind of implied that she wasn't from there, something along those lines, that she was actually a witch, but I don't remember exactly what they had said about her. But we don't know her backstory at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
or we don't know her backstory in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So to be able to see, oh, this is where the White Witch came from,
Yeah.
that was like a really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that too. I enjoyed seeing like, oh, okay, and so who she has become as the White Witch is not what she was before, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of what and it makes sense that she's become so cold and she's become so dark and like not dark, she becomes lighter and lighter skin, but like her personality, her thoughts, everything about her is just frozen because
Mm-hmm.
she's that apple has caused her to basically everything is
Mm-hmm.
what did they say that her soul would just not be. I can't
Yeah,
remember what the book said about it, but
I
I
want to
think
say
it was,
that things would just be bitter from this
yeah.
point, something like that. Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up because I really liked how it said it. Let's see, I'm in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe right now. The Magician's Nephew. Let's see. The apple core, apple. Yeah, I don't remember what he said. Let's see.
Oh,
Okay,
it
let's
says,
healed
shall
her,
find
but
their heart's desire and find despair.
yeah,
So she'll find her heart's desire, and in her heart's desire, she'll find despair.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought it was pretty darn funny
Hmm.
when she went into the real world.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All the,
She was such a mess. She was
yeah.
such a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. That was cool.
Then says Natharnia as a character is an interesting idea. I bet some English major somewhere has tackled it.
Probably.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Because that's a whole like entity in and of itself, and it has its own vibes and thoughts and feelings and
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and I liked, and this one, and I feel like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe were the two that had like the most um, biblical tiebacks to the the biblical stories. Like this
Hmm.
one, you've got the Noah story, and you've got the creation of the world story, and so it was interesting to see this in the creation of Narnia and how that kind of played into then the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where there were quite a few of those stories as well. Whereas
Yeah.
I don't know that I saw, maybe just because I don't know enough about the biblical stories, like where those fit into the other books, but I
Mhm.
definitely saw it a lot in these first two
Oh
books.
yeah, definitely. I think it was much more prevalent in these, and the even from the biblical standpoint of the witch, and if you correlate her to like the devil or
Hmm.
Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, how when the world was created, he was already there. And so Aslan is like, evil has already entered this world, evil
Hmm.
is already here. Well, that's, the whole tempting Adam and Eve and, and all that. And so it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
he was already there. So,
And that well, yeah, and the apple tree and the whole Adam and Eve thing was pretty, like there was a lot that was included in this book,
mhm.
and it wasn't very long, like, but
No,
it was. Let's see. Of course, now I want to know how the White Witch came to power Narnia. I do
yeah,
too. We don't get that, do we?
I don't think we do. I don't know
Oh,
the book. I just know, I know he's got um, the screw tape letters, so something completely different, but I haven't heard anything where it's like the villain's origin story. I think that's more of a modern thing, but it
mhm.
would be really good to know that. I think it'd be really interesting. So I would like to see some author come up with that and write their own.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Hmm.
Where's that English major that Beth Ann's talking about?
Yeah,
We should go.
yeah.
I like that Narnia has quirks and traits of its own. It does. Yeah, it really does. And it goes through different periods of like change, just like a person might go through periods of change.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through periods of, like degrading because that's when all the animals no longer can be, they have to hide themselves and nobody knows that they're Narnians and later on in the series and
Mm-hmm.
that the Narnians could talk and the trees could talk and it
Yeah.
was went different periods. Poor Narnia. Her use of the despicable word was hilarious when she realized it had no power.
Yeah.
Agreed. I loved that. She was like expecting, you know, to like
Mm-hmm.
basically kill all of them in that room.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it reminds me that kind of made me think, go back to the perfect phrase, like if you've seen Knives Out, at the end of Knives Out where it turns out he has a fake knife and the line is, oh shit, it made me think of her going, saying that word and then going, oh shit, didn't work.
I know. And I was kind of bummed that when she went out into, I guess it was funny when she went out and she's like riding on the back of the hansom and she's like going, she's huge and she's grabbing things and she's like smashing the cops in the head stuff. That was funny too, but I kind of wanted her to be humbled a little more. Like I kind of
Yeah.
wanted her like to be like, like, oh, nothing's working for me. But she was still this giant, strong person. So like I get that that had to be the way it was because she was still a powerful person. She just her magic didn't work there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
like I like how C.S. Lewis made things as realistic as he did. Like the whole, biblical tie-in, it's there, and if you know it, you know what you're looking for and can pick it out. But if you don't know about it, then it's just a nice little fantastical different
Hmm.
story. And the whole thing with the witch is like there are people that are so dark and selfish, and you think about like like Hitler and all these other evil people in the world that have existed, that it's like sometimes, even though they might be faced with certain situations that you think would be humbling in most situations, it doesn't even phase them. They'll turn it around and blame it on someone else and still think they're high and mighty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. You're right. And well, and of course you've always got somebody else to blame for everything. So it makes it easy to still believe you can be high and mighty because it's not your problem. It's never been your fault.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that was maintained because she genuinely is a bad person. This witch is not a good, and she obviously wasn't ever good because look at what she did to her home world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And her and her sister were the queens, or they were fighting, but they were fighting basically with people's lives because all they cared about was their own individual power, and they were
Mm-hmm.
willing to kill everybody else because they were their subjects, so they didn't really care about them as individuals.
Yeah. You know what would be another, we got to have another author go this route too, is what if when Diggory rang that bell, instead of waking up the witch that they interacted with, it woke up the sister? Who's going to be more evil?
Oh, yeah. Well, because yeah, she made it sound like her sister was the more evil one,
Yeah.
didn't she?
Or is she
Yeah.
going to be the good witch and help the children get back home and everything? Or was she really more evil and the sister was just trying to portray her as evil and her the good one? Or, so that would be an
Oh.
interesting little storyline.
Where's that English major? They've got a
I,
lot of work to do.
yes, they do.
Let's see. The last battle is very biblical too. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I mean, obviously, don't say anything because I'll find out soon enough. But I'm not even sure where the last battle happens. Like, when's this happen? Who's it against? Why is it going to happen? So I'm interested to find out, like, what's this last battle? Because I feel like there was a last battle that was mentioned in this book.
Mhm.
Was it in The Horse and His Boy or was it in Magician's Nephew? I can't remember which one. But in one of those books, I saw the words last, well, I heard because I was listening to them.
Mhm.
I heard the words last battle. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wait, what is this? What's the last battle? But maybe it was something else completely.
Maybe. I think I kind of want to say that was probably in The Horse and His Boy because they were already going to battle and have to beat those men before they got there and all of that. And so they had their own little battle there. And so maybe
Yeah.
that kind of alluding to the last battle in some way.
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay.
I don't
Because
know.
I remember the term the last battle came up. And I was like, is that what they mean by the last battle? And I just didn't know. And I think I need to go back and honestly, that particular story I will need to reread at some point.
Yeah.
Not right now, but maybe when maybe when I read this to my students, who
Mhm.
knows? Let's see. Naomi says, it said that she would stay away as long as the tree was alive. Right. So yeah, how did that tree go away then? Because the White Witch does come back. Trees don't die. Well, I mean, how long? I guess apple trees don't last forever. Some of our evergreens last for a pretty darn long
Mhm.
time. But I'm guessing like once the apple tree died, or did somebody destroy the apple tree?
Mhm.
We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And that would be an interesting little side story too. And it wouldn't surprise me if C.S. Lewis would have thought where you can leave, because the Narnia has its border where you have to leave to go gather certain things or do certain tasks, that the witch is probably laying in waiting, and how she can plant certain thoughts and swayed people to do certain things. And I don't know, that'd be interesting.
So she was hanging out in the north, waiting for the tree to disappear and, planning all this stuff. So was the north where the giants were? Wasn't that where the giants were? Like the north?
This sounds right, but I don't know for sure, but it sounds right.
Because I'm curious, like, who,
Mhm.
she obviously was aligned with the dwarves
Yes.
and the witches and who else? What was the giants?
Hmm.
And was there anybody else? She was aligned with these people. So were they all the ones that were up in the north when she was living in that place? And then once the tree fell, then they all came down and they allied with her and took
Right.
over.
Probably.
So I'm guessing she was up there kind of probably ruling them because, she couldn't
Mhm.
live her life without ruling something.
Oh, yeah.
She was very much important, more important than everybody else.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Monica says, hello, I love this series first. I love this series. First read them in sixth grade. Our teacher read them to us. So Christine, you said you read these first or started reading them when you were younger. Did you
Mhm.
read them yourselves or were they read to you?
No, it was on my own time. They weren't read in school. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you think you would have enjoyed them more if somebody had read them to you?
I think so because I think it would have just brought a different level and discussions, and I think I would have enjoyed that more than trying to decipher certain meanings on my own. You
Yeah,
know.
because I could see this being kind of complex. The language is a little more complex for this generation of children, I would say, because there's terms and stuff that are not as commonly used.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I could see that this would be a little more tricky for a kid to read it on their own. And then a lot of the names and stuff are a little tricky, you know?
Yeah.
Just look at some of the names of these characters, not the kid characters, but like the different animals and the different
Mm-hmm.
creatures. And
Yeah.
there are some complex parts of this.
Well, and I think even if it would have been read in school, I think, with the complexity of like the names and stuff, and even talking about, okay, the kids are in this situation and this is what they're thinking and doing, but you got to remember they were in a time where that was acceptable, where it's not
Mm,
acceptable now. And having someone explain that could have made it a little bit more digestible and a little bit more
right.
understandable for a kid. But to go on your own so young to read it, I can see why when I tried to read it the first time I got bored because it's like I'm not connecting with anything.
Right.
And now having the understanding that I do, I can read it and go, okay, this is a lot more entertaining and
Yeah.
understandable than I ever thought it
Yeah.
would be.
And being able to find the parallels that somebody who could help you, who would understand things better, could help guide you and show you where the parallels might be with your life, or
Yeah.
real life, or regular life, now life,
Yeah.
versus trying to figure that out on your own as a child.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious about that because they read them in sixth grade. I'd be curious how students really do react to this series when you read to them.
Hmm.
And sixth grade is I think is a good grade for this.
Yeah.
Like middle school age,
Hmm.
younger middle school.
Yeah.
John says yes, the Giants were in the North, so
Good.
that's how she created that relationship with.
Yeah.
Gosh, the Giants were. I was thinking about Silverchair now. The Giants were so awful.
Yeah. Definitely.
Naomi says I think Silverchair is in the North and Horse and This Boy in the East or West. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I want to like see a map of like Narnia and its outer lying. Is there a map of like the whole? Oh, there's got to be, right? There's lots of maps in
Um,
here.
I have the book I have has end pages that are a map. And so I don't know how well you can see that because I can't see my phone now. But
I
yeah,
can see Archenland is to the south of Narnia,
yeah, you've got Narnia. Archenland is the south of Narnia, and then it says Desert Men, which is just south of that, and then you have the Bright Kellerman, or like the Bright of that is to the, let's
oh,
see, north
let's see.
southeast. Yeah,
Oh, Wildlands of the North. I have a little map too. It's not the whole map, but
yeah,
yours is bigger.
yeah.
So yeah, so I've got Wildlands in the north, then you've got Archenland below the south, and that's where was Ark who went to Archenland?
So Archenland would be more of things that it looks like we're a desert setting that looks more deserty, especially since
That
the land is right beneath that.
was
The
that where they went to in
one,
A Horse and His Boy?
I think so, because and then it's like the wildlands. See, that's kind of cut off on mine. So that would be looks like it'd be more mountain and lush and
Which is
yeah.
I think that's where Silverchair was in the north.
Yeah.
Let's see. Come on.
Because then you
There's
have
just too many pages in this book.
yeah, yeah.
Horse and His Boy. Oh yeah, yeah. So it was almost south of Archenland. Oh yeah, because Archenland is where the father with the two twin boys, the king and the two twin boys lived, right? And so south of that was the desert where
They had
let's
to
see.
cross to get there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I've got this map right here, which shows Tashbaan, which is where he
Uh-huh.
which is where I think he started, where he was living. But this is the river that his father found him in, and
Yeah.
then they go up to the Oasis. Oh no,
Hmm.
lighting, come on. The Oasis is here,
Hmm.
and then they go up even further to the narrow gorge. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, and then
Cocoon.
that one that you said, Tat, however it was, where it
Heshbon.
ended. Yeah, that's cut off on my map. I can see like the tips
Oh,
of
okay.
the letter, so it is cut off. So yeah, it looks like you have a better map than I do on mine.
I don't have a full map though, like
Yeah,
a map that just shows the whole thing.
yeah, that would be really nice. I'm gonna have to look that up because it would be kind of put a couple of more things into context.
Yeah, especially since we're having stories in different parts of
Mm.
the greater Narnia world.
Yeah.
Naomi says Shasta became king of Archenland. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, okay. Or Archenland, or however. I think they pronounced it Archenland in the book. I mean, the
I think
audiobook.
so. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. Because they did go north to get to Archenland. And then I guess in my mind, I couldn't picture where Narnia was in relation to Archenland, even though I know they said they were bordering each other. I just couldn't picture where it was. So, like,
Yeah.
I would love a full Narnia map. Like, where's that English major? He's got a lot of work to do. Let's make
Yeah.
us some maps, write us some other stories,
Hmm.
um, take care of things here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you're probably right, Naomi. I'm sure somebody has made it and put it online. I would like to check it out. So I'll do a search for that.
I'm sure we can just Google it and there are plenty of images that'll pop up.
Oh yeah. I'm sure somebody has probably made it, wanted
Mhm.
to visualize how it was, took all the directions that they read in the stories and created a map.
Mhm.
And yeah, these ones are just a little disjointed and they don't have everything.
Yeah, no, and they're large enough that you definitely can't see everything because there are things that are definitely cut off.
I did think that Magician's Nephew was fun because it was a portal fantasy. Like this one was
Mhm.
I mean, I know the other ones are portal fantasies too, but this one actually like brings you to different portal worlds that they can go to, and that there was this in between place. Kind of reminded me of the Night Before Christmas when they go out to the
Yeah,
trees where all the
yeah. Except instead of going through trees, you're going through puddles of water. And that's
right,
what.
oh yeah, which is a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, and I kind of wanted them to go through more. I was like, I mean, I knew that obviously they didn't have the time for it. We just knew this
yeah.
wasn't a very long story, but like you kind of want that to see what else is possible out there, what other kind of things they could come up against.
Mhm. Yep. What other worlds and characters exist? And yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I wonder why or what made C.S. Lewis think, there's a lot of areas here where he could have definitely expanded.
Hmm.
And I wonder what made him think, okay, this is the end. I'm done with this. Like after the last battle, like didn't, or even before that, like didn't want to expand on any other parts of this because there are a lot of elements to this where I think you could expand and continue and make full stories from other parts of it.
Yeah.
I wonder what made him think, okay, I'm done. I mean, I'm sure every author has a point where they go, this is what I've wanted to share. This
Hmm.
is it.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to move on to the next project, maybe. But
And I kind of wonder if where he was trying to tell things from a biblical perspective, but to where kids could understand it.
mhm.
Uh, and I, just whatever his reasoning is with even writing the whole Chronicles of Narnia, even in the Bible, there are references to how there's other worlds, but that's all that it says, and you don't even know any of that. And so it's like, well, it's mentioned, but it doesn't delve any further. So it could be, you know,
Yeah.
anything. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's the fun of it. You get to use your own imagination to imagine what else could be out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. And honestly, Magician's Nephew is surprisingly like Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, Silverchair, Magician's Nephews, right? All those three are
Oh,
like right there. Like I'm
yep.
really loving those are my favorite three at this moment.
Mhm. Yeah. Same here. Absolutely. Yeah.
Great minds think alike, Christine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt so, I was really hoping I was going to say one of the things I really enjoyed was how Diggory's aunt was trying to put the awful queen Jadis. What's her name? Jadis?
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Trying to put her in her place.
Yeah.
And she was doing so well, and then that queen is such a bully. She just
Hmm.
beat her up, like or she threw her against the wall. I thought that was horrible.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I just wanted this queen to be put in her place. I wanted her to not think she was as amazing as she thought she was for a second.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was going there. And
Mhm.
then she still.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of my other favorite things about the magician's nephew is the whole thing with Diggory's mom, and how even though Aslan gave him the apple and he went and gave it to her and she ate it, it was kind of quick, but there was still a process and a healing process of her to get better. It
Mhm,
wasn't just take a bite and all of a sudden she's
mhm.
100%. There was still this gradual healing. Like she had to just kind of regain her strength.
Yeah. It
Hmm.
wasn't just all of a sudden she's this perfectly healthy person again. It was a little more realistic in that sense then. It
Yeah.
didn't seem like, granted she made a turn for the better, but
Hmm.
it wasn't like she was on her feet jumping around. And so it's like you could think, well, did the apple actually heal her, or was she going to get better?
Yeah.
And she had, so it's like, is the magic really there?
Hmm.
Or did she? And I think that's kind of cool too, because
Yeah.
it just leaves that
Well,
like
she
level
started,
of uncertainty, but it doesn't really matter because as long as you believe in the apple did heal her.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What'd you think of the cabbie? Because he ended up being playing a big role in this after that was such an interesting addition.
Did I like that? How it's like the horse already existed, but obviously because everyone was touching when they touched the ring and entered back into the
Mhm.
fantastical world, uh, the horse was made to talk, and then I loved how it was like the cabbie was made king, and then Aslan was able to bring his wife over. So you have the first king and queen. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, there's Adam and Eve right there. The first, if
Mhm.
you want to get, biblical about that, but it's like that was just really cool, and how you could see the progression of the cabbie talking whatever, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
the dialect, and how it became more eloquent as that story progressed.
I thought, the audiobook I thought did a good job of that because my mom and I were listening to it on the way out to visit family this morning,
Hmm.
and we were both like, oh, you could tell his voice was changing because the
Hmm.
the accent changed, went
Yeah.
from a really strong Cockney accent to then more of just like a country accent, and Branagh did a good job of like portraying that change, and he then even became more sure of himself and more
Yeah.
stronger in his what he had to say, because at first he was like, I don't know about this, I don't think I'm king material,
Yeah.
but he was genuinely like he was a good person, and I really liked how even from the beginning he was really concerned with Strawberry, and he just wanted to make sure Strawberry was okay. The queen was obviously abusing this poor horse, so he just was
Yeah.
like, please just leave my poor horse alone.
Yeah.
And even when the horse was kind of like able to talk, he was kind of like, well, I remember you using me for work. And he's like, well, no, no, no. It was a teamwork. Like, there were times when I was in pain and struggling as well. Like,
Hmm.
we did this to keep, it would have been nice if we could have lived in the country. We
Yeah.
were poor, so we obviously couldn't. And so it showed that he had a really genuinely kind heart.
Hmm.
And he wasn't phased by much.
Yeah. That was interesting. And I like too how when with Strawberry, and that he helped say, okay, now do you remember at the end of a long day, you would get this sweet stuff. We couldn't always have it, but how much I gave you stuff that you liked. And so it kind of helped Strawberry remembers some of the good rather than always the later
The
and
bad.
stuff. Hmm.
Sugar cubes. And then he becomes a Pegasus. Like, how
Yeah,
amazing is that?
I loved that. Yeah.
Let's see. Magda says, me three, as far as she liked those ones a lot too. So she
Mhm.
liked the ones we are liking. Naomi says both of these two get 5 stars from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It's I've been impressed. I'm impressed. Maybe C.S. Lewis did write more but didn't publish. Possibility. I don't know what else C.S. Lewis has really written, so I'd be curious to see like where things went next after this.
Mhm. Yeah, the only other thing I know that he wrote is, like I had said, I think it's called the Screw Tape Letters, and about something like that. But I don't. My mom read it and she enjoyed it, but I haven't read it yet. Yeah.
Let's see. And Beth Ann says, I love the cabbie. Yes, the cabbie was amazing.
Yeah, he was a really good
Oh,
comic relief.
yes, he was. I want to go back to the horse and his boy. because like I said, my memories are not as like I really did not focus as much as I should have on that story, and I think it had a lot to do with the audiobook. So I will go back and read the story. But I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about Rapidash because the ending of this book was hilarious with Rapidash
Mm-hmm.
and how he became the donkey, the jackass,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes.
I just thought that was such a funny, clever ending and
Yeah.
worked out really well because he just wasn't getting it. He was never getting it, but that he just thought like my, he's just like, I just like the saying, my shit don't stink. Like he just thought he was so amazing and that he
Mm-hmm.
deserved everything. And he just was
Mm-hmm.
such an ass is what he was. And
Yeah.
he
He could do
turned
no
into an
wrong.
ass.
Yeah.
And then he couldn't, when he had to stay by the temple until forever. And if he moved away from the temple, he'd be able to be turned back into um, a human if he stayed near the temple. But if he left the temple, then he would be turned back
Okay.
into a donkey forever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty hilarious. I thought that was a
Yeah.
fitting ending to that story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if it's around there. Like it had something to do with that section where it talked about the last battle.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I want to. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was. I forgot to mention that. I thought that was a really good ending to that story.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. Definitely.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So Naomi says he wrote tons of nonfiction, a space science fiction series. Oh, really? And
Oh.
several adult parables. Oh, okay. I can see the adult parables for sure because
Mm-hmm.
of the similarity to
Mm-hmm.
this kind of series.
I'm
But
not
a
so.
space science fiction series. Hmm. Oh, let's see. C.S. Lewis.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong book, trying to find stuff. Like, it's not connecting here.
Okay. The Screw Tape Letters, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Mere Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, The Great Divorce. What is that? It looks almost like the cover looks kind of like it's like a murder mystery almost.
Hmm. Uh-huh.
Just Christian fiction. Doesn't say what it is. Out of the Silent. Oh, here it is. Out of the Silent Planet.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like. Ooh. Like that's that spaceship?
Okay. Huh. I'm gonna have to look into that because now I'm really
Yeah.
intrigued. Yeah.
It's the first novel of C.S. Lewis's classic science fiction trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ransom, a Cambridge academic, is abducted and taken on a spaceship to the red planet of Melicandra, which he knows is Mars. His captors are plotting to plunder the planet's treasure and plan to offer ransom as a sacrifice to the creatures who live there. Oh, they're offering him as a sacrifice to the creatures who live
Mm-hmm.
there. Hmm. All right. Yeah, so we didn't do children's books anymore after this, I guess, huh? Children's stories.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I've done what I needed to do, and I'm done now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, overall, I'm having a good time. So,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for inviting me to read this with you because like it's funny because I feel like it is hard sometimes for me to read it like a series like continuously because
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes like say with The Horse and His Boy, there's just times when I don't feel like reading it and I'm like, and I don't probably enjoy it as much as I would probably enjoy it on a reread.
Right.
Whereas reading The Magician's Nephew right now in the last, few days, I'm like, oh, this is what I need to read right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so I enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoyed it so much more because I want to read it right now, or if just because I'm enjoying it having reread it and then
Mm-hmm.
having read all this other series. So it's kind of, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of fun, but interesting to see how I've been feeling about the books,
Yeah.
which ones have hit me a lot harder, which ones
Mm-hmm.
and I can definitely say that, like, when I think back, the ones that are the most exciting to me are like Silverchair, this one,
Mm-hmm.
Magician's Nephew, and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is just classic. Like that one doesn't necessarily have the same like punch of emotion and feeling that the other two have, but to me, feels just, it's classic. The story is classic. Like it feels really good. And
Yeah.
I like that because it just sets everything up.
Hmm. And I wonder if the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe would have more of an impact when you haven't heard certain references out of context before, because it's so well known. A lot of people refer to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and things, and
True.
it's referenced a lot. So I think if it just wasn't there, it'd be just a whole new discovery and probably a bit more mhm,
Bit more what?
excitement, probably with
Maybe,
discovery.
maybe. Yeah, just having known so much about what kind of happens. I mean, I don't know how much I knew, but I did know like the portal fantasy element to it. And there's other books that I have read that have very, you can tell they borrowed from, or at least were inspired by The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So
Hmm.
it's nothing, it feels like nothing new to me because I've read books that are more current that have been inspired by this. But of course, this is the first, or at least this is the inspiration for all those
Yep.
types of books.
Hmm.
So I see what you mean, though. Like, if I hadn't had all those other references beforehand, would I feel that this was a little more like, oh, okay, new,
Hmm.
fresh, and exciting?
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
unfortunately, I've already got all those influences in my head. You can't go
Oh,
back.
oh, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So the last battle is going to be on your channel.
Yep.
All right. And we are planning on, we haven't talked about a date for that, but it'll probably be sometime next month.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so we only have one book left, everybody, and we're doing
Yeah.
so good. We're getting
Yeah.
there, and we get to find out what the last battle is about. I have heard some
Hmm.
people say that this wasn't their favorite, so I'm curious
Hmm.
to see how I feel about it.
Yeah.
If I'll feel like it's a great finale for this
Hmm.
whole series.
Or if it's going to be a letdown.
Right. And this one is the one that's narrated by Patrick Stewart, right?
Oh, I am so excited for that.
I
I'm
know.
I love Patrick Stewart.
I was thinking like I should probably read it, physically read it, but I'm like, but this is the one that's narrated by Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
And I loved this last one that was narrated by Kenneth Branagh, who's an actor that I like. So I'm like, no, I need to listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to do what I've done with all these. I'm going to listen while I read along.
Mhm.
So that'll hopefully I'll absorb a little bit more and enjoy it more. But oh, I'm so excited to hear Patrick Stewart's voice.
It's gonna be fun. Is that a fairly long book, or is it one of the shorter ones?
Oh, I don't think any of them have been longer than, at least in my edition. I think the longest is like 115
Like
pages.
115 or 16 pages, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, this one's about 100 pages, so a little less than 100 pages actually,
yeah, so
or maybe not. Maybe
pretty average for them. Yeah.
that's about 100 pages.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. So we'll definitely. Oh wait, let's see. It is least favorite, but I'm excited to finish the series so fast. Yeah. Okay. So this one's your least favorite as well, Naomi. I think I don't. I had no. I heard somebody else say that too. So I know somebody else said that the last battle was their least favorite.
Hmm.
Where did you go for the audiobook? I've been getting mine on Scribd or with Libby. Where have you been getting yours?
Audible.
Audible. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, I was able to use, and it with Audible, I would recommend searching for a compilation of the books, because
Mm,
I was able, kind of like the looking for the bind up. It's on Audible. I think the cover is like the one for your edition, and it
hmm.
only costs 1 credit. But if you go and buy the books individually, it's 1 credit each book. So definitely, if you go to Audible to use a credit,
For the one that.
yes, yeah, save your credits and money and get the bind up version.
And it has like Patrick Stewart narrating it.
Yep.
The
And
one on Scribd has Patrick Stewart also.
yeah. And the one thing I would say too, and I don't know if it's this way with Scribd or not, but with Audible, where it's the bind up, it goes in chronological order. So I had to kind of
Mm-hmm.
look at the contents and skip around in the Audible.
Okay. Okay. No, you just get the individual books on Scribd. So like I'm just downloading the last battle right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
um and that one it's like a monthly membership. It's not like a
Yeah.
per. So yeah, we will let you know, and we'll send out some information. I'll put it on my community page. We'll let you know and send a link out for when we have planned on doing our next live show for the last battle.
Mhm.
and we'll be doing it on Christine's channel. So thank you for hosting that, Christine.
You're welcome.
And if there's no other questions or thoughts, how are you feeling? Are we feeling like we did good?
I think we did good. I think we did great.
Oh my gosh, thank you everyone so much for participating with us in this. This has been so much fun, and it's, we got it. It's been very interesting to read this, but then it's been really awesome to read it as a group as well,
Hmm.
because to hear everybody's different thoughts and opinions on this series that I've been having kind of up and down feelings about. Sometimes I feel really good about it, and sometimes I feel like it's just not as, I don't know. I think I have a problem when it comes to these older fantasy stories in general,
Hmm.
because I've had issues with other, even like Hobbit. I wasn't crazy about, and which most people love, and I liked Lord of the Rings better, but it wasn't like, I'm not a stan. I
Yeah.
like, and so I'm trying to, delve into these older classic fantasies more, and just I really do appreciate them for what they have brought to fantasy.
Yeah.
Um, but it's fun to hear what other people think. And then
Yeah.
of course I do miss out. I feel like I've missed out on the fact that I didn't read these growing up, so I don't have that nostalgia factor, which I think would
Yeah.
add a lot.
Mm. Yeah, I think so too. Because, you know, like you've mentioned and I've mentioned before, where I tried it, but I just couldn't get into it. And I think having an adult read it with me definitely would have helped out. And so I do not have that nostalgic tie to
Mm,
it. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll see how it goes with the last battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Naomi says, "See you next month for the final installment."
Yay.
Woo!
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you
All
later.
right. See you guys later.
Bye.